Something about stars and legends. Venus in the summer evenings is a striking object in the western sky. Our Venus they call the laughing star, who is a man. He once said something very improper, and has been laughing at his joke ever since. As he scintillates you seem to see him grinning still at his Rabelais-like criticism, seeing which the Aborigines say, "He's a rude old man, that laughing star." The Milky Way is a warumbool, or water overflow, the stars are the fires, and the dusky haze the smoke from them, which spirits of the dead have lit on their journey across the sky. In their fires they are cooking the mussels they gather where they camp. There is one old man up there who was once a great rainmaker, and when you see that he has turned round as the position of the Milky Way is altered, you may expect rain. He never moves except to make it. A waving dark shadow that you will see along the same course is Curry, the crocodile. To get to the warumbool, the Royal Brew, 2 dark spots in Scorpio, have to be passed. They are devils who try to catch the spirits of the dead, sometimes even coming to earth, when they animate whirlwinds and strike terror into the blacks. The old men try to keep them from racing through the camp by throwing their spears and boomerangs at them. The Pleiades are 7 sisters, as usual, the dimmed ones having been dulled because on earth Varuna seized them and tried to melt the crystal off them at a fire, for, beautiful as they were with their long hair, they were ice maidens. But he was unsuccessful beyond dulling their brightness, for the ice as it melted put out the fire. The 2 ice maidens were miserable on earth with him, and eventually escaped by the aid of one of their multiplex totems, the pine tree. Varuna had told them to get him pine bark. Now the Mimi Pleiades belong to the Biwi totem, so does the pine tree. They chopped the pine bark, and as they did so the tree telescoped itself to the sky where the 5 other Mimi were, whom they now joined, and with whom they have remained ever since. But they who were polluted by their enforced residence with the Earthman never shone again with the brightness of their sisters. This legend was told emphasizing the beauty of chastity. Men had desired all the sisters when once they traveled on earth, but they kept themselves unspotted from the world, with the exception of the 2 Varuna captured by stratagem. Orion's sword and belt are the Beri the boys who best of all loved the Mimi, for whom they used to hunt, bringing their offerings to them, but the ice maidens were obdurate and cold, disdaining lovers, as might be expected from their parentage. Their father was a rocky mountain, their mother an icy mountain stream. But when they were translated to the sky the Beri were inconsolable. They would not hunt, they would not eat, they pined away and died. The spirits pitied them and placed them in the sky within sound of the singing of the Mimi, and they are happy. By day they hunt, and at night light their corroboree fires, and dance to the singing in the distance. Just to remind the earth people of them, the Mimi drop down some ice in the winter, and they it is who make the winter thunderstorms. Castor and Pollux, in some tribes, are 2 hunters of long ago. Canopus is Wamba, the mad star, the wonderful wedder of long ago, who, on losing his loves, went mad, and was sent to the sky that they might not reach him, but they followed, and are traveling after him to this day, and after them the wizard Burian, their evil genius, who made the mirage on the plains in order to deceive them, that they and Wedder might be lured on by it and perish of thirst. When they escaped him Burian threw a barbed spear into the sky, and hooked one spear on to another until he made a ladder up which he climbed after them, and across the sky he is still pursuing them. The clouds of Magellan are the Brulga, or native companions, mother and daughter, whom the Royal Brew chased in order to kill and eat the mother and keep the daughter, who was the great dancer of the tribes. They almost caught her, but her tribe pursued them too quickly, when, determined that if they lost her so should her people, they chanted an incantation and changed her from Brulga, the dancing girl, to Brulga, the dancing bird, then left her to wander about the plains. They translated themselves on beefwood trees into the sky, and there they are still. Gao Wargay, the featherless emu, is a debble of water holes. He drags people who bathe in his holes down and drowns them, but goes every night to his sky camp, the coal pit, a dark place by the Southern Cross, and there he crouches. Our Corvus, the crow, is the kangaroo. The Southern Crown is Mullion, the eagle hawk. The Southern Cross was the first Minga, or spirit tree Hujiaraton, which was the medium for the translation of the first man who died on earth to the sky. The white cockatoos which used to roost in this tree when they saw it moving skywards followed it, and are following it still as Mui, the pointers. The other Yarraton trees wailed for the sadness that death brought into the world, weeping tears of blood. The red gum which crystallizes down their trunks is the tears. Some tribes say it was by a woman's fault that death came into the world. This legend avers that at first the tribes were meant to live forever. The women were told never to go near a certain hollow tree. The bees made a nest in this tree, the women coveted the honey, but the men forbade them to go near it. But at last one woman determined to get that honey. Chop went her tomahawk into that hollow trunk, and out flew a huge bat. This was the spirit of death which was now let free to roam the world, claiming all it could touch with its wings. Of eclipses there are various accounts. Some say it is Hit the sun, the wanton woman, who has overtaken at last her enemy the moon, who scorned her love, and whom now she tries to kill, but the spirits intervene, dreading a return to a dark world. Some say the enemies have managed to get evil spirits into each other which are destroying them. The Wiri nuns chant incantations to oust these spirits of evil, and when the eclipse is over claim a triumph of their magic. Another account says that Hit the sun, after many lovers, tried to ensnare Balu, the moon, but he would have none of her, and so she chases him across the sky, telling the spirits who stand round the sky holding it up, that if they let him escape past them to earth, she will throw down the spirit who sits in the sky holding the ends of the Karajan ropes which they guard at the other end, and if that spirit falls the earth will be hurled down into everlasting darkness. So poor Balu, when he wants to get to earth and go on with the creation of baby girls, has to sneak down as an emu past the spirits, hurrying off as soon as the sun sinks down too. Balu is a very important personage in legends. When the blacks see a halo round the moon they say, "Hello. Going to be rain." Balu building a house to keep himself dry. All sorts of scraps of folklore used to crop out from the little girls I took from the camp into the house to domesticate. When storms were threatening, some of the clouds have a netted sort of look, something like a mackerel sky, only with a dusky green tinge. They would say, "See the old man with the net on his back. He's going to drop some hailstones." Meteors always mean death. Should a trail follow them, the dead person has left a large family. Comets are a spirit of evil supposed to drink up the rain clouds, so causing a drought, their tails being huge families all thirsty, so thirsty that they draw the river up into the clouds. Every natural feature in any way pronounced has a mythical reason for its existence, every peculiarity in bird life, every peculiarity in the trees and stones. Besides, there are many mythical bogies still at large, according to native law, making the bush a gnome land. Even the winds carry a legend in their breath. You hear people say they could have burst with rage, but it is left to a black's legend to tell of a whole tribe bursting with rage, and so originating the winds. There was once an invisible tribe called Mera. These people, men and women, though they talked and hunted with them, could never be seen by the other tribes, to whom were only visible their accoutrements for hunting. They would hear a woman's voice speak to them, see perhaps a dew lay in midair and hear from it an invisible baby's cry. They would know then a Mera woman was there. Or a man would speak to them. Looking up they would see a belt with weapons in it, a forehead band too, perhaps, but no waist nor forehead. A water vessel invisibly held a man was there, an invisible Mera. One of these Mera men chummed with one of the Dulungaya tribe. He was a splendid mate, a great hunter, and all that was desirable, but for his invisibility. The Dulungaya longed to see him, and began to worry him on the subject until at last the Mera became enraged, went to his tribe, and told them of the curiosity of the other tribes as to their bodily forms. The others became as furious as he was. They all burst with rage and rushed away roaring in 6 different directions, and ever since have only returned as formless wind to be heard but never seen. So savagely the Mare howled round the Dulungaya's camp that he burrowed into the sand to escape, and his tribe have burrowed ever since. 3 of the winds are masculine and 3 feminine. The crow, according to legend, controls Gija Gija, and keeps her in a hollow log. The eagle hawk owns Gorun Gudilbadilbay, and flies with her in the shape of high clouds. Yaraja is a man, and he has for wives the Buddha, Bibble, and bumble trees, and when he breathes on them they burst into new shoots, buds, flowers, and fruits, telling the world that their love the Yaraja, the spring, has come. Dur and Ura woos the Kulaba, and Kurajong, who flower after the hot north wind has kissed them. The women winds have no power to make trees fruitful. They can but moan through them, or tear them in rage for the lovers they have stolen, whom they can only meet twice a year at the great corroboree of the winds, when they all come together, heard but never seen, for Mera, the winds, are invisible, as were the Mera, the tribe who in bursting gave them birth. Yaraja and Dura are the most honored winds as being the surest rain-bringers. In some of the blacks' songs Mera is sung of as the mother of Yaraja, the spring, or as a woman kissed into life by Yaraja putting such warmth into her that she blows the winter away. But these are poetical licenses, for Yaraja is ordinarily a man who woos the trees as a spring wind until the flowers are born and the fruit formed, then back he goes to the heaven whence he came. Then there are the historical landmarks by Amy's tracks in stone, and so on, and the battlefields, too, of old tribal fights. Just in front of our station store was an old Kulaba tree covered with warty excrescences, which are supposed to be seats for spirits, so showing a spirit haunt. In this particular tree are the spirits of the Mungun, or armless women, and when the wind blows you could hear them wailing. Their cruel husband chopped their arms off because they could not get him the honey he wanted, and their spirits have wailed ever since. Across the creek is another very old tree, having one hollow part in which is said to be secreted a shell which old Warana, the traveller of the tribes, and the first to see the sea, brought back. No one would dare to touch the shell. The tribe of a neighboring creek, when we were first at the station, used to threaten to come and get it, but the men of the local tribe used to muster to protect it from desecration even at the expense of their lives. The Minga by the garden I have told you of before. Further down the creek are others. At Weetaliba was the tree from which Amy cut the first Guyandi. This tree was burnt by travelers a few years ago. The blacks were furious the sacred tree of Amy burned by the white devils. There are trees, too, considered sacred, from which Amy cut honey and marked them for his own, just as a man even now, on finding a bee's nest and not being able to stay and get it, marks a tree, which for anyone else to touch is theft. A little way from the head station was an outcrop of white stones. These are said to be fossilized bones of Bugadugada's victims. She was a cannibal woman who had hundreds of dogs. With them she used to round up blacks and kill them, and she and her dogs ate them. At last she was outwitted and killed herself, and her spirit flew out as a bird from her heart. This bird haunts burial grounds, and if in a drought anyone can run it down and make it cry out, rain will fall. During a drought one of these birds came into my garden, hearing which the blacks said rain would come soon, and it did. In another drought when the rainmakers had failed, some of the old blacks saw a rain bird and hunted it, but could not get it to call out. Geologists say there should be diamonds along some of the old watercourses of the Morilla ridges. Perhaps the white stone that the blacks talk about, which shows a light at night, and has, they say, a devil in it, is a diamond. Ruskin rather thought there was a devil in diamonds, making women do all sorts of evil to possess them. The blacks told me that a Queensland tribe had a marvelous stone which at great gatherings they show. Taking those who are privileged to see it into the dark, there they suddenly produce it, and it glows like a star, though when looked closely at in daylight seems only like a large drop of rain solidified. This stone, they said, has to be well guarded, as it has the power of self-movement, or rather, the devil in it can move it. The greatest of local landmarks is at Brewarrina. This is the work of Byami and his giant sons, the stone fisheries made in the bed of the Barwon. At Boogira, on the Nran Lake, is an imprint in stone of Byami's hand and foot, which shows that in those days were giants. There it was that Byami brought to bathe the crocodiles who had swallowed his wives, from which he recovered them and restored them to life. At Mildul is a scooped-out rock which Byami made to catch and hold water. Beside it he hollowed out a smaller stone, that his dog might have a drinking place too. This recurrence of the mention of dogs in the legends touching Byami looks as if blacks at all events believed dogs to have been in Australia as long as men. At Duanwinio are two rocks where Byami and Birachnulu rested, and to these rocks are still sticking the hairs he pulled from his beard, after rubbing his face with gum to make them come out easily. At Gudi, a spring in the Brewarrina district, every now and then come up huge bones of animals now extinct. Legends say that these bones are the remains of the victims of Mullion, the eagle hawk, whose camp was in the tree at the foot of which was the spring. This tree was a tree of trees, first, a widely spreading gum, then another kind, next a pine, and lastly a midgie, in which was Mullion's camp, out of which the relations of his victims burned him and his wives, and they now form the Northern Crown constellation. The roots of this gigantic tree travel for miles, forming underground watercourses. At Urabba and elsewhere are hollowed-out caves like stones. In these places Birachnulu slept, and near them, before the stock trampled them out, were always to be found springs made at her instigation for her refreshment. She is the patroness of water. At Toolby and elsewhere are mud springs. It is said that long ago there were no springs there, nor in the Warrego district, and in the droughts the watercourses all dried up and the blacks perished in hundreds. Time after time this happened, until at last it seemed as if the tribes would be exterminated. The Yanta spirits saw what was happening and felt grieved, so they determined to come and live on the earth again to try and bring relief to the drought-stricken people. Down they came and set to work to excavate springs. They scooped out earth and dug, deeper and deeper, until at length after many of them gave in from exhaustion, those that were left were rewarded by seeing springs bubble up. The first of those that they made was at Yartabulla, which bears their name to this day. The blacks were delighted at having watering places which neither a drought nor the fiercest sun could dry up. The Yantas were not contented with this nor with the other springs they made. They determined to excavate a whole plain, and turn it into a lake so deep that the sun could never dry it, and which would be full of fish for the tribes. They went to Kingle and they began their work. On they toiled unceasingly. But work as they would they could not complete their scheme, for one after another wearied and died, until at last nothing was left on the plain but the mud springs under the surface and the graves of the Yantas on top. No blacks will cross Kingle Plains lest some of these spirits arise through the openings of their graves. This legend shows what a disheartening country the West is in a drought. When even the spirits gave in, how can ordinary men succeed? But indeed it is not ordinary men who do, but our Western heroes, as Will Ogilvy calls them, who wear their cross of bronze on neck and cheek in the country where the green fades into grey.